I realized a few years ago when I was looking for an apartment to rent for my daughter that the only thing more painful than going to the dentist was looking for a rental apartment in Bangkok. And I think it was very articulated well by Patrick yesterday, where he said it was a shitty experience, and I think that was probably an understatement. So it was really out of that experience that Flat Monthly was partly born, recognizing just the pain and the fragmented nature of the rental market. So, my background wasn't from, classifieds or portals, so I didn't really understand that, there was a marketplace 1.0 or 2.0 or 3.0 until yesterday. So this morning I adjusted the presentation and put up that we're a marketplace 5.0. And so today is a very special day because for the first time on stage you'll get to know what a 5.0 marketplace is, and that comes at the end of the presentation. So anybody who can stay awake that long will get to learn today for the first time ever what a marketplace 5.0 is. So I think this one slide probably best summarizes how we see Flat Monthly. And it's sort of coincidental that myself and my co-founder Michael, who's here today as well, come from the left and right side of this slide. So he's from the real estate industry at real estate agencies in Australia. And my previous company, which I exited a couple of years ago, was in hotel management. So I came, let's say, from short-term accommodation market. And what was outstanding to me was that in the hotel business, I was very used to very sophisticated tools to manage inventory. In the hotel business, we have very, very strong, very detailed property management systems with CRM. We have two-way integration through all of our channel managers, through to distribution onto portals like, Agoda and Expedia and that sort of thing. We have tools to manage rates on a daily basis because, as you know, it's a dynamic sort of thing, somewhat automated, somewhat manual, science, art, that sort of thing. So really the opportunity that we saw was, could I bring sort of the sophistication, the seamless, frictionless transaction experience that we have with booking short-term accommodation to long-term accommodation, okay? So I sort of realized during the course of the last couple of days was most people in the room are coming from real estate portal. And there's always a lot of talk about, okay, we want to get into transaction, we have to bolt on transactions. And after a while, I started to realize that, actually we came from the other direction because I came from the transaction side and I'm bolting on the real estate side. And right or wrong, but my personal feeling now is maybe that was the right direction to come from because I'm taking best of breed transaction, process, and technology into, real estate, rather than sort of coming from like the side that doesn't do transactions well at all or not very well, and then try to drag it in. So it's maybe it's an interesting thing for everyone to think about is rather than think of bolting on transactions is maybe to look at some best of breed transaction models that are out there and move from them into real estate rather than the other way around. So that's sort of where we are in terms of Flat Monthly is trying to be the best of breed, listing and transaction portal where we can transact the total rental online. So I'll take you through some of the thinking of how we've approached that. But the first step was to really look at, okay, that was a great idea to look at real estate and long-term rental coming from short-term accommodation. But the question we had was, well, how big is that really, that opportunity? Because coming from the hotel side, I knew that the short-term accommodation market was massive. So there was a question in our mind as to, well, how big is really the opportunity in long-term rentals compared to short-term? Because short-term is very sophisticated. You can see there's a lot of players in it that are transacting and that sort of thing. So basically, in the end, the research showed something like this in terms of the relative size of the market opportunity between short-term accommodation and long-term accommodation. So, this was obviously great news and fully supported, our thinking that this could be a great opportunity to move into. So you can see here, in general terms, it's about 10 times bigger than the short-term market. So what our vision was, how could basically we be like the Agoda of long-term, accommodation? And you notice even now I still say long-term accommodation. I don't really even say rentals and sometimes, because that was sort of the mindset that I was coming from. So just to drill down a little bit on some of those numbers, and these numbers were prepared from various sources, and unfortunately there's no real official rental market statistics, but it starts to sort of give you a bit of an idea about the potential market size for long-term rentals in Asia Pacific. So we started the business in Bangkok. I've been in Bangkok for 30 years now. We have offices in Singapore and KL. So, we were pretty happy when we started to see some of the numbers about the market opportunity size, if we could crack it, and do, what Agoda and Booking and Expedia has done to short terms, can we do that in long term market? So what also became apparent was that the benchmark references of the online travel agents, OTAs as we call them, were extremely customer-centric. And we really liked that because I felt that a lot of the property portals, quite rightly, were agent-centric because they were making money from agents. Whereas the online travel agents are making money from the consumer. They get their commission directly from the consumer. So there was a slight difference there. So it really helped us to sort of try to develop an extremely consumer-centric solution to the problem coming from sort of like the travel industry. So when we started to dig down and go, okay, well, sure, that sounds easy, but there was obviously a lot of challenges to roll out, like an Expedia or an Agoda type experience for long-term rentals in Asia. And I think we all know Asia well enough to know it's fragmented, it's unregulated, the agents are unprofessional, they're unlicensed, the list goes on, and I won't bore you by reading through the slide there. But in some way, it just validated our case that there was need for a proper solution to address all of these problems. So what we did was we said, okay, rental is a process, the same way that booking a hotel or renting a car or whatever. So let's look at the process of rentals and see how we can improve it. And I think this slide, it was just a quick screen capture. I won't mention which portal, but it was typical of most of the portals. Articulates sort of how fragmented and screwed up somehow the market is a little bit. So you can see here that this condo development, Edge Sukhumvit 23, which is literally around the corner, has in total 400 units built in that building physically, but listed for rent is 1,400. So I was new to the market, and when I was looking for condos to rent for my daughter, I started to realize that there's something really wrong. And this is not like a one-off sort of thing. The Noble Reveal project, this one is 273 units. I'm not sure if you can read it. 273 units built in the building with 1,111 for rent. So I think that's, probably best summarizes just how sort of, difficult it is for consumers in the market. So we developed a very methodical approach to working through the whole rental process and basically taking a machete to all of the pain points in the process. So the process is well known, and you know it. Search, selection, choosing the period that you want to stay, the contracting process, facilitating the payments, security deposit issues, and related services. So we went through, one by one, looking at those processes as they stood today and sort of understood, okay, these are the pain points that either the agent, the tenant, or the landlord is experiencing. And, there was like pain at every process. So we said, okay, we want to have this consumer-centric solution to rentals. So, what is our ideal nirvana solution for each of those pain points? And then we had to make sure that our portal addressed all of these pain points with a suitable solution. So this slide was, what we developed over a year ago, and really became a sort of a checklist for us to make sure that ultimately we delivered a solution that did solve the dentist pain of rental processes. So that's basically what we did. So just as a bit of background, we started the company about just over 18 months ago. We used a third party, threw together, a WordPress sort of solution with a bit of a booking engine to try to come up with an MVP, to prove, the thinking and to really learn a little bit more about the process. And that was great. And it only delivered maybe 30% of that solution, but it was enough that we actually did start to get people booking rentals online, transacting totally online. And during that learning process, we developed what we called our ultimate technical solution. So our own IP, our own systems, that really came in and had all of the functions that addressed all of those solutions. And that portal was launched in about September last year. So one of the things that we also do, apart from the obvious, search, selection, booking, was that we looked at services. So as part of the rental booking process, I think it's like step 3 or step 4, you can choose on an a la carte basis the services that you might want. So whether it's cleaning, laundry, a driver, you can even book like your monthly coffee capsule subscription. You can book a scooter on a monthly basis and that sort of thing. So again, what we did was we looked at, how to do that in a very consumer-centric way. So we took actually the best practice from the airlines industry, because I think, we're all familiar with airlines and add-ons. So we treated these like add-ons. So the same way that you would book extra luggage or book a preferred seat or your meal or something like that. So that was the concept that we tried to deliver in terms of the consumer journey, to add in these what we call living services, but they're treated like add-ons as part of the booking process. And that, I would say, of course, we get clients who book those services, but I was a bit surprised that they weren't as common as what we had hoped. And I think maybe it's something that's new and takes some education. Of course, Wi-Fi is always chosen, but the others are very much on an ad hoc basis. So to answer the big question about what is Marketplace 5.0, it's not an online portal, it's a virtual reality rental portal. So whenever I start to talk about this, everyone starts shaking their head, going, yeah, it's just for gamers, it's like, it's not going to happen, everyone talks about it. But I'm still a strong believer, and I think it's one of those things that no one will believe it until it probably happens, and then it might be a little bit too late. But we've made a big commitment in terms of all of our website content, or let's say half of the rooms that we shoot are all shot in VR. So you can actually experience the room in VR. So one of the biggest challenges we had in terms of being able to convince people to book online was the trust issue. How can we make them feel confident enough to book long-term accommodation without actually physically inspecting the property? So there was lots of things that we've tried to do in the website to address that. But one of the big one was about the quality of the imagery of the rooms. So in the end, we made a decision. We have, I think, in total, we have about 2,500 rooms listed now on the portal since September. About half have been shot in VR. And what we've done is that we've tried to create not just the rooms in VR, but also the building. So if you look at the lobby, the swimming pool, the gym, it's all in 360. And then we have the areas, so you can look at the neighborhood, you can look at the street, you can look at the local train station, the local Starbucks, all in 360. So we've really gone over the top in terms of the level of detail and the quality of content on each rental to try to address this problem of people want to inspect the room before they make a decision to rent. So has it worked or not? So what I can share with you is that when the bookings are from 1 month to about 6 months, we have probably about 60-70% success rate in terms of people don't need to see the room. The quality and the detail of the information that we can offer them on the website is enough for them to feel confident enough to make a booking through the website, sight unseen. Once we start to get over 6 months, of course, the consumer investment and risk is higher. So the percentage of success of a total online transaction has reduced a bit. So I would estimate roughly is about 30%. Certainly, if it's a 1-year rental with a wife and 2 kids and a dog, it almost always ends up with inspections. But what we've been able to do is to use the quality of the information and the imagery on the website to reduce the inspections maybe from 20 properties, which is not uncommon, or even 15 properties, down to 3 or 4. So what our hope is, once VR becomes more commonplace, is that all of that will happen actually virtually. So it's a sort of a big investment for us at the moment to shoot in that higher quality imagery, but like everything, probably it will happen faster than what we think. And I put a picture here of the Hoi VR glasses, which were released just before Christmas last year, $450 or something, and they're sort of just a little bit bigger than your Ray-Bans. So with the rollout of 5G, and I think just last week, Thailand had their 5G auctions. And already the telcos are starting to talk about, okay, 5G, what does that mean? Okay, and I know from True, which is second largest operator here, is that they see 5G is going to be definitely a VR, AR enabler. And they're betting heavily on VR and AR as part of their 5G plan. So I think it's sort of quite interesting as a real estate industry to think about, what could be the implications of 5G and VR and all that sort of thing on real estate, and what should we be doing to really get ready for that when it comes. So where are we today in terms of the business? We're really a startup in the traditional sense. As you can see, we haven't been going that long. And although, our progression looks very textbook and very well thought out and very systematic and very steady, the reality is that we have slightly pivoted the business, as we go and as we understand the market and see the opportunities more and more. What's been really fascinating is that we've now starting to be approached by international agencies, brokers, and real estate portals to help them with rentals. Help them as either a white label provider, a SaaS provider, because obviously we have a very good management system for managing rentals and the whole process of rentals and contracting and everything. Simon talked yesterday about the idea of moving from a listing model to a transaction model, and that might be best served by creating another brand to do that business rather than creating transactions in your current classifieds business. So we're actually talking to some portals as well about, should we JV? Should we do something? Can we provide a technology to do that transaction engine for them? So that was a little bit out of left field, and something that we didn't anticipate was that the strength of our technology is sort of getting to the stage where we can actually resell that technology to players in the industry. At the moment, to give you some stats, I'm not sure who asked what, but we have about 2,500 listings at the moment. We're growing at around about 300, 400 listings a month. We just started in KL more or less this month. Employee number 1 in KL started this month. We've been operating Bangkok a year and a half. Singapore, we started at the beginning of the year. So that's just starting to get underway. So I think that's about where we are. So thank you.
Anthony, thank you very much. We've got questions here.
Okay.
I really should have brought my glasses. That's no good.
Okay, I got it.
Where do you get your listings from?
Yeah, so we obviously as a startup we have very limited resources and never enough people. So we prioritize, let's say, big elephants for listings. So we're going after developers and major agencies. So we actually embrace agencies at the moment to come onto the portfolio, onto the platform. But the majority of listings are coming either from the big developers. And I don't know if you saw Bangkok post yesterday. Bangkok has 100,000, empty condominiums just in Bangkok. So, developers are carrying a lot of stock and they need help. They also have quite often their own rental management companies. So we get a stock from them and also from some of the bigger agencies.
Okay. Do you have to get units exclusively to facilitate the booking? And if
and the
so,
calendar.
I disputed that question.
So at the moment we have a combination of exclusive and non-exclusive. Majority is non-exclusive.
Yep.
Managing the calendar is probably one of the most challenging parts of the whole business. So we're trying to work out technical solutions, how to manage that. Of course, on the exclusive stock, we control a calendar, so it's very easy. And to be honest, it does help us close deals a lot faster. So we have much more success with exclusive stock just because we can control the calendar.
Yep. Now, what percentage of transactions are completed online? And are you just a realtor using Matterport?
Yeah.
Okay. What IP is unique to what you're doing?
Yeah. So transactions completed online, I would say is around about 70% at the moment, roughly. It varies from month to month because the numbers are still a little bit small, so we get spikes and dips. So in terms of Matterport, that's our imagery technology, but it's really just one part of a total solution. So it's all about the type of content, the fact that we're shooting the buildings, the areas, we have services, we have the online payment, we collect the deposit through credit card for the first month. We have a DocuSign for the digital contracting and the lease agreements and things like that. So yes, we have Matterport, but it's one part of a much bigger solution.
Yep. How do you make money?
So we take a commission from the landlord or the agent. So we charge 4%. So in traditional terms, it's almost like a co-broking fee, but we call it a listing fee. So we charge 4% on the rental value there, and we take a few percent from the tenant as a booking fee. So it's sort of more like the Airbnb model, where we take a little bit from either side. And then, of course, on the services, we don't actually deliver the service ourselves. We outsource that. So we take a commission on the services.
Okay. How do you confirm a property visit scheduling when brokers outside of Flat Monthly also have access to the property?
Yeah, so if it's exclusive, of course, we can arrange the viewing easily. But if it's not exclusive, then we just go back to the agent and work with them to arrange the appointment to do an inspection. But more and more, to be honest, we sort of avoiding the need for inspections altogether, which is obviously the ultimate goal.
Yes, so it's all done sight unseen, or at least VR seen.
Yes,
in that
exactly.
process. Understand what you're getting at. Is it correct to say you focus mainly on furnished apartments and mid-term rentals, as 12-plus month rentals need physical viewings and are mainly non-furnished?
Yeah, I think at the moment it's a little bit, that's probably a true statement, and it's reflective of our current inventory. But the inventory profile is going to change over time as we go lower in the market. But our average length of stay at the moment is around about 5 months. So we have a lot of corporate clients who use the system to book corporate deals. They tend to be longer. So we get a blend, but I think my personal feeling is that accommodation will move to accommodation on demand. So the whole idea of a 12-month rental, I wouldn't be surprised if in 5 years or 10 years' time, the whole idea of a 12-month rental contract just doesn't even exist. And our model is sort of plays into that, even the name. Yeah.
Yep. Yes, because they suggest you change your name to Flat Yearly or Flat Half Yearly. If it's, but clearly how you're thinking about this is planning for the future with the VR and end-to-end process. I love what you're doing. I think it makes a lot of sense to do it in these emerging markets. We see models like this happening throughout the European markets, and applying it here to an emerging market. I think if you crack the code and embed it into everyday process for the landlords and the developers who have stock, then I think you become very valuable to them. So good luck for the business, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Excellent.